Hi everyone, it's Tiff and Luke here from the Australia Rules Football College, and this week we are pre-filming Think Tank Thursday because Luke has some other coaching requirements that he needs to do tomorrow. So we're pre-filming and we're talking about the one percenters this week.
Yeah, so coming to one percenters in a sporting or a football sense, I guess the best way to look at that is both on-field and off-field, and we'll go through quite a few things on in each of those categories. But when looking at how we're going to beat our opponent, that's probably the one thing, and how you can do that is either to be better than your opponent in any one form, or you can actually be more consistent, be equally as good as your opponent, but actually be more consistent with your output.
And so I think one of the things for me to look at with the one percenters is that most clubs are going to have the same amount of practice time. So they're going to have Tuesdays and Thursday nights that they're together. Most athletes are going to be there for 2, maybe 3 hours, and they're going to look to make the most out of that 3 hours. But then we have the rest of the time in the week, outside of the 4 to 6 hours that you're at footy training, and how can we maximize those hours to make sure that they're complementing what you do at training and making sure that you're ready for game day and that you can perform at your optimal on game day. So one of the kind of principles that we use here at the football college is the 80-20 rule. So do you want to put in 80% effort and get 20% return, or do you want to put in 20% effort and 80% return? I know for me, I like to do the 20% and get an 80% return. So we're going to talk about a lot of different topics today, and we're not necessarily saying that you need to go out and change all of them. In fact, if you attempt to change all of them this week, you're going to set yourself up for failure. So when we are looking at changing something, whether that's somebody's lifestyle and health and fitness or the way that an athlete prepares for a game, we just want to pick one thing that's going to have the biggest impact and focus on that. And when that becomes a habit, then we focus on another thing, and then another thing, and another thing. So this week we're going to give you a list of things, and it's up to you to decide which thing is going to have the most impact for you immediately and to focus on that. Now, it's also important to note that everyone reacts to change differently, and so I think the example is comparing like reptiles to cats. So cats change really, really quickly, where reptiles change a lot slower. So Luke and I may both look to start drinking more water each week, but I may adapt a lot faster, and so that might be my key focus for this week, and next week I have something different, where Luke may need 2 weeks or a full month or even 2 months in some cases to make that his key focus and for that to become a habit. So it's really just about self-awareness and you understanding where you are in that kind of scheme and how quickly you adapt to change. Sometimes you might adapt to change faster than others. So if you're really stressed out, if you've got exams coming up at school or a big deadline at work, then keep in mind that your adaptation to change is going to be a little bit slower. So these are all things that we need to take into account when we're looking at these one percenters. So do you want to start off with on-field or off-field?
Let's kick off with on-field, and I'll step in and take the lead on this one. So there's sort of a couple of things that I wanted to focus on with the on-field side of things for footballers, and I think the notion of making mistakes, I think we've talked about growth mindset in the past versus a fixed mindset, and what the effect of mistakes has on an individual. And a lot of it, particularly young players, as they're sort of growing up and they're seeing some of their teammates performing at a higher level than themselves, they are fearful of making mistakes. But one thing we work really hard on at the moment with players, particularly at the college, but also outside of the college, is being prepared to make mistakes and almost seeking opportunities to make those mistakes. And also then, what do they do with those on-field mistakes, whether it's an errant kick or a handball or a drop mark or whatever that might be, a missed tackle, whether it be in training or in games, and we'll talk later on about video analysis, but when you identify that mistake, it's what you do and how you handle it. So some players will go into their shell and then no longer will they go push themselves as far or put themselves in a situation where they make mistakes. But by encouraging yourself to make mistakes and challenge yourself, it's then what do you do with it? So looking to try and identify that you've made a mistake, learn from it, and then move on. It's treated as a learning experience, move on and look to develop and get better. So that's a massive one from an on-field point of view, is learning from your mistakes and be prepared to make some to get better and develop.
Yeah, and it's important to not beat yourself up when you do make those mistakes. So one of the things Ozzy actually said to our athletes today was his goal is to put them in situations where they make as many mistakes as possible, because the more mistakes they're making here when they have multiple footies coming at them, the better they're going to handle one footy on game day on the field. So yeah, definitely seeing those mistakes as a learning opportunity and not necessarily as a mistake.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess the extension of that as well is, particularly when you're a developing footballer, you don't know how good you can get. So if you limit yourself, then you're not going to get any better. So by making mistakes and challenging yourself, you don't know how good you're going to be. Your coach doesn't know how good you're going to be. I've worked with players that you think they might get to a certain point, and then they make a few mistakes, you think they're limited, and they actually push past that, learn from mistakes, get better. Who knows, go on to get drafted or play at a high level of football, or just get the most out of themselves. So we never really know how good someone can get until they challenge themselves and push themselves to their limits. So I think that's really, really important. So I think the next point I wanted to move on to is doing extras. And I said at the start of this video about being better than your opponent if you're looking to get that edge. It's about doing those extras, and Tiff, you talked about having clubs, and when you're at your club training, only have a limited amount of time, whether that be 1 or 2 nights a week with your coaches, and generally on average is probably a coach to every 15 or 20 players. So it's about doing extras outside of that, and we talk about the notion of extras, but also making them purposeful. So not just spending an extra 4 hours a week doing a range of skills, actually working on what is it that I need to be working on. So one thing we do a lot of is on a one-on-one basis is setting up, and it doesn't have to be super in-depth, but a player development plan or program. So that's actually sitting down with your coach and saying, what is it that I need to work on? What is it that I'm really good at? Where do I fall down? And where can I focus my time outside of training? So like homework at school, no one likes homework, but this is footy homework. So if you're going to do an extra hour and a half spread over 3 days, so it might be 3 30-minute blocks for you to work on a couple of key areas, how are you actually going to get that done? Do you just go out there blindly and copy what you do at training, or do you speak to your coaching staff and say, what is it that I need to do? What tweaks do I need to make, or what do I need to focus on in that time? And having an actual plan, like a training plan in the gym, what you're going to focus on this week versus next week versus the week after, and actually have a bit of progression and continue to challenge yourself to make those mistakes in your own time, not just at training. So I think that's super important to spend that extra time doing that, and obviously looking at a notion we've talked about before as well, or a coaching philosophy is a strength-based coaching philosophy. So not just spending all that time with your extras, just picking up on the things that you don't do well, but things that you do well, actually getting even better at those things, becoming elite at those things. So trying to give yourself that point of difference from your opposition players.
Yeah, definitely. So at the football college, we actually call it footy focuses. So every week, the players will sit down on a Monday morning, first thing when they get here, and they'll write down what they want to focus on, what their goals are for the week. We also have a Facebook group where they tell each other what they want to work on, and so they can hold each other accountable. And they base that on the game that they just had on the weekend, the feedback from their coach that they got, and everything like that. I think it's important with the purposeful extras to also come back to our last video, Luke, our last Think Tank Thursday, where we talked about that mindful practice as well. So when you are doing the extras, making sure you're not just going through the motions, but that you're actually building those proper neural pathways by focusing on what you're doing and not multitasking or not having a conversation with a mate while you're doing it, but actually really focusing in on what you're doing. Luke, you made mention to how much you've seen your girls improve by bringing in this mindfulness practice. So when you are doing extras, and even when you're not, even when you're just at footy training, just taking that time to be mindful and to pay attention to what you're doing.
Absolutely, super important, and as you touched on, that working with young athletes that spend that, not only spending that time, but doing it with purpose. As it's, I suppose, you talk about the 80-20 rule, doing the 20% or doing 20% and getting 80% return. Whereas what I said to a lot of athletes who think that if I just do a huge amount in my own time, then that's going to make me better. It's also another notion between mass versus distributed practice. So for those that do PE, you might hear that back in school, but whether you just do a huge block of training, whether you do, so that 90 minutes you're going to do in a week, do you do just 90 minutes over and over and over again where it feels a bit monotonous, or do you do 3 lots of 30 or 2 lots of 45 where you can do really, really purposeful training, which I think is really important. The next one I wanted to sort of touch on was around, particularly if you're a young developing athlete who isn't really sure, how do I do these extras, or how do I learn from my mistakes? I'm not really sure, I understand what you're saying, but I don't know how to do it. And that's the idea of actually getting some expert guidance. So rather than just trying to go out there on your own and feel your way, getting some guidance from someone. So if it's trying to get stronger in the gym or it's trying to get faster, go to people that are experts in that field. So go and get a running coach, or at least speak to someone that has some more knowledge or has developed their own mastery of that craft to help you, give you some guidance. And coaches come in all formats, whether it's your footy coach, whether it's your mindfulness coach, whether it's your strength coach in the gym, whatever that might be, there is someone out there that can guide you. So go and seek some feedback, go and seek some guidance, tell them what you're looking for, and then get that guidance. So I think that's super important to do that.
Yeah, and as you said, Luke, just finding that person who has mastered it. So in the finance world, they talk about, if you have a goal to make $1,000 a week, you find somebody who has 10 times what you have. So you find somebody who's making 10,000 a week.
Yep.
And I think that's a really important rule to kind of apply all across your life. So don't just go to somebody because they say that they've done the qualification or that they can. I mean, there's a lot of things that I can teach people, but I don't know that I could teach them well. Like, I don't know that I could teach physics well, but I could if I needed to. So, so finding somebody who is that master and they have done what you've done. So, we've got a lot of kids here at the college, students who want to play in the AFL, and they're being coached by somebody who has won a premiership in the AFL. So getting that person who's been there and who knows and has that, not just knowledge, but they have that experience, because it's that experience that creates the wisdom and can help you take your goals and your skills to the next level. Yeah,
absolutely. Super important. The next one that I wanted to talk on, and one of the final points from an on-field standpoint, there's a lot more that we can go into, but I sort of picked a handful as a start point, and that's around video analysis. Now, it's probably a topic that some out there might be saying, well, I don't have access to video analysis. But it doesn't have to be a full filmed game. It could be one of your coaches are training with an iPad, and it could be like we've got set up here, where it's on a tripod or leaned up against a wall, just filming you doing whatever you might be doing, whether it is your kicking, whether it's your handballing, your marking, any of the skills that you're looking to improve on, having that video, having some video vision of that, to be able to go back and watch it through. I think that's super important. But if you are lucky enough to have access to some game vision, which TAC Cup or some amateur football clubs do invest in just a handy cam and filming the games or filming training, as a player, rather than just waiting for the coaches to get that vision and talk to you through it or whatever that might be, actually getting hold of it yourself and having a look and watching yourself in action. I sort of fairly confident that even an inexperienced footballer, if they were to watch themselves on live or on recorded vision, based on how much they've watched of AFL vision, they'd be able to pick up on that's elite and that's where I'm at. So where do I need to improve on? Okay, my kicking, or I'm moving this way when they're moving that way. So I think that's really important. There's no reason an amateur athlete can't do their own video analysis. But again, going back to that expert guidance, if you'd like some more advice, then you can speak to someone with experience in guiding you through video analysis for your own knowledge, then you can go off and do your own. Not just on yourself, but if you are lucky enough to get vision of games, and you look at that game and we go back to the notion of how do you get the upper hand on your opponent, have a look at the last time you played that certain opponent, and if they did happen to beat you on that day overall or just on a few occasions, what is it they did? So how did they beat you? Did they move, again, left when you moved right? They evade a tackle because of their footwork? What was it? Were you not looking in the right direction or whatever that might be, dropping your eyes when going for a mark? There's certain things that you can pick up on, both of yourself and of your opponent, by looking at that vision. So if you've got access to that, certainly something and well worth having a look at.
Definitely, and there's actually some really good apps that you can get now for iPhone and Android. If you're, just working on a kick at training, you can get, your coach or one of your teammates to film you, and then, you can draw on it and do whatever else you need to. So definitely some things to check out there.
Absolutely, and even going as far as some of the AFL players have some apps out there, and you can do an overlay where you put your kick versus their kick, and theoretically they should be elite in that, which majority of them are, but you can actually just do a mirror of your kick versus their kick and see how you're going. So that's sort of, again, going back to a notion we've talked about in previous Think Tank Thursday videos around being an autonomous learner. There's no reason a 12, 13, 14, 15-year-old footballer can't become responsible for their own learning. Go and seek that, go and research what it is they need to be doing and how they need to be developing themselves.
Yeah, definitely agree. Awesome. So on to the off-field stuff. So I'll do my best not to go on any too big of rants here. Luke, you can stop me if I happen to. So we'll start with nutrition. So nutrition is probably one of the most misunderstood things in today's society, and especially with Google and everyone being a Google guru and being able to give out food advice. I just want to touch on a couple main points. I'm not going to tell you what you should and shouldn't eat, but I'm going to tell you that if you're following the food pyramid, that's definitely not what you should be doing. So each and every one of us has a different ancestry. We have a different, we come from different parts of the world. I'm Canadian, but I have Irish and Scottish blood in me. I don't know if you know your ancestry, but so it all comes from where our ancestors came from as well, because that's going to define the makeup of our digestive tract. So for example, people from an Asian country have a larger pancreas, which is why they can tend to handle more rice. People who come from ancestral tribes that are closer to the water tend to be able to eat more meat, more protein. So the food pyramid's bad, is basically what I'm saying. And make sure that you're eating good whole foods. So unprocessed food is the best. There's actually been studies done recently, and some orthopedic surgeons who have been doing ACL recos for like 25 years have come out and said that ACLs in particular, but this will apply to all ligaments, that the integrity or the strength of ACLs nowadays is so much worse than what it was 20 years ago. And that's because we just have all this convenient food at our fingertips, and we can just get all this crap, to put it bluntly, and we can be lazy and not have to prepare our meals. So food preparation is going to be massive if you want to make it to the next level, because you need to be eating good whole foods, and that's not something that you can, just pull out and microwave for 5 minutes. And I won't get started on microwaves today, but that you should also ditch that as well. And then looking at drinking. So obviously in Australia there is a drinking culture, and in footy there is a bit of a drinking culture as well. And so just keeping in mind that what you do put into your body, whether it's food or alcohol, is what your body is ultimately made of. So when we're talking to our athletes here at the college, we typically refer to it as, do you want to build your body out of cardboard, or do you want to build it out of wood and steel? And when you're eating McDonald's and you're drinking beers every weekend and everything else that goes with that lifestyle, you're building your body out of cardboard. And so if you're continually getting injured, you're continually doing ACLs, hamstrings, knees, whatever else, shoulders, then you may need to look at your diet, because your muscles and your ligaments aren't going to have the strength and integrity that they need. It doesn't matter how much gym work you do. If you're putting crap in, you're going to get crap out. And then the last thing is hydration. So most people tend to be underhydrated nowadays. And there's been studies showing the detrimental effects of even 1% of dehydration, what 1% of dehydration has on the body. You're not able to learn properly, you're not able to focus. Your body can't go about its day-to-day functions, never mind then go and play a massive footy game. So as a general rule of thumb, before any footy, before any form of physical activity or sweating, everybody needs 2 liters of good clean water a day. And then you add on to that as you sweat. And if you're a really sweaty person, then you might need to drink 5 liters a day. And if you're somebody who doesn't sweat so much, then it might only be 3 liters. But you do need to increase your hydration as you sweat more and as you do physical activity. So how was your hydration today, Luke?
Look, today I'll be honest, I'm not going to lie on, I was going to say on live on video, but on recording. It hasn't been great, been rushing around. Probably goes back to preparation. I left my water bottle at home, and so I was running around drinking out of cups, so yeah, it wasn't conducive to keeping up my hydration.
Yeah, so when it comes to the off-field 1%ers, preparation is going to be the biggest key. So if you don't prioritize it in the same way that you do getting to footy training, or the same way that you do going to school or getting to a game on time, then it's just not going to happen. So I like to come back to the quote, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. Mm-hmm. So sitting down, blocking out some time to do food prep. I do all mine on a Sunday, so that my meals for the entire week are ready until the next weekend. If that doesn't work for you, then just cook extra when you're cooking dinner so that you can take some leftovers. But preparation is definitely going to be the key. Then we look at recovery. So recovery is probably one of the most misunderstood things when it comes to athletes. They just, think if they're hungover and they're on the couch the next day, or they just take a day off, then that'll be enough. But our bodies need 8 hours of sleep a night. Now you might think that you're able to cope on less than 8 hours, but your body has just adapted to being less resilient. So there was a study done recently with the US Navy SEALs. So these are like the top, like, equivalent to the Australian SAS. And they had them have 8 hours of sleep consistently every night for a month. And then they tested their skills and their abilities. And then for a month, they had them sleep just 6 hours a night. So they're only losing 2 hours of sleep a night, which a lot of people think it doesn't sound like that much, right? 2 hours, it's not a big deal. Still getting 6 hours of sleep. When they retested them, they found that their skills were about 20% less than what they had been when they were getting the 8 hours of sleep a night. They kept them on that 6 hours of sleep a night, and they retested them another month later, and they thought their perception of their skills had increased, but they hadn't actually physically done any better. So it also, a lack of sleep also distorts our perception of things. And so we might think that we're playing at the best that we can, or we might think that we're coping well on 4, 5, 6 hours a night sleep, or, I've had some athletes and some clients tell me that they only sleep 2 to 3 and that's all they need. But your perception has been greatly reduced. So you need 8 hours of sleep a night. And maybe we'll do another topic on another Think Tank Thursday on sleep, because I could go on a rant on that one as well. And then we look at the types of recovery that we do. So when you were playing, Luke, what was your recovery, your go-to recovery?
So ice baths or some sort of water-based, obviously after post-stretching, but yeah, whether it was to jump in a bath or if I had access to a pool or something like that nearby. Driving home from footy, dropping at the local pool and go for a bit of a swim or a walk around the water was my go-to. It just felt good, so I figured it must have been good for me at the time.
Yeah, and so everyone is different, and everyone's going to enjoy different things. I mean, even though I'm Canadian, I can't stand an ice bath, so I will avoid ice baths at all costs. I'll go jump in the ocean though. So it's just finding what works for you and building that into your routine. So it may be the ice baths, it may be hitting the beach or the pool, it may be yoga, definitely stretching. The point of recovery is to warm the muscles up and to flush out the lactic acid from the muscles. So all that lactic acid that's built up during the game, to flush that out and to allow the body to then bring fresh blood in to repair any micro tears that you've made to the muscle through the game and to fix any injuries that may have come up. So at the college we rotate. On one Monday we'll do yoga and the next Monday we'll hit the pool. We do a lot of mobility, so a lot of foam rolling, stretching. We've got a massage therapist who will be coming in on Mondays now, working with our athletes and helping them flush things through. So you just want to make sure that you're doing some form of active recovery to get that lactic acid out of your body. Anything to add in the recovery sense?
No, only that I wish I'd known what I know now when I was 15 to 18, because it's paid the price. I started way too late. So if I can heed my advice and say that you learn with age, but once you get to 32 and your body's cooked, then you can't go back. You can still do the recovery, but damage is already done. So jump on that early, and again, these are all under the banner of elite behaviours. Behave like an AFL athlete and do what they do, and I think you go a long way to maximising your potential.
And I think recovery is really undervalued a lot of times. People think it's just like that, it's just this fluffy woo-woo stuff, but really it's all about prevention. And the more that we can prevent something from happening, the better off we are in the long run. So if we wait until we have a hamstring injury to strengthen our hamstrings, then we're already too late.
Yep.
Whereas if we can start strengthening our hamstrings from the start, then we never have to worry about that issue. Same with an ACL, same with IT band tightness, which is actually coming from glute weakness. It's all about prevention, and then you don't have to retire in your early 20s and take up coaching. So then looking at the gym. So how often are you on a regular strength and conditioning program? Do you have a good strength and conditioning coach, or do you actually know what you're doing? Because, with the footy players that we get in at the college, we tend to see that, they do a lot of bicep curls and a lot of bench press, but maybe not so much around the squats and the deadlifts and the glute activation and the chin-ups and, really working their posterior chain and getting a really good gym program. So it's really, really important to make sure that, you're playing, you've got training twice a week, you're working or going to school, but it is important to have some form of strengthening element to your program. So you're almost building like a physical shield. So, you know, this muscular shield, and that'll help you protect against injuries as well.
Absolutely. I think the big thing I learned, again, I'm going to use myself as a case study because I did it all well too late, but it's probably almost the muscles that you can't see that tend to be more important. So I've had enough surgeries and injuries to know that it's the stabilisers and the ones that you can't see and don't necessarily look good that generally do the best work. Everything else is just the cream on the cake for those that want to look a bit better on the footy field in their footy gear. So again, heed that advice. Get a good program, get it early, and I guess make it age appropriate. And I'll throw that question to you because you're more well versed in this area. But when you're looking, I suppose some of the viewers are going to be early teens to mid-teens, and others are going to be in their 20s, 30s, 40s. Obviously, making it age appropriate, and how coaches, I suppose, can make it age appropriate when they're working with young youth teams.
Yeah, so one of our philosophies at the college is it doesn't really matter so much about your age, but you have to earn the right. So if you can't do the movement with your body weight, then we're not putting weight on you. So if you can't, sorry, just a little notification popped up there. So if you can't do a squat without weight properly, then we're not going to put a barbell on your back, and we're not going to put dumbbells in your hands. If you can't do a hinge pattern, we're not going to load you up on a deadlift bar. So we actually spend the first couple sessions with our athletes making sure that they can jump, make sure that they can squat, make sure that they can hinge, make sure that they can do all the movements. And then as they can do the movements, when they can show us that they've earned the right, then we start adding weight and we progress them from there. So if you're younger, you will have to do a bit more of a bodyweight program first. If you're, that pre-pubescent age, then it is important that you get a really strong bodyweight program in place first. That's not to say that you can't add weights down the track. Obviously, we're not going to load you up and go for like a strongman 1RM, but we can get you doing larger repetitions with some weight after you can do the body weight competently. Now, when we talk about posterior chain, we're talking about all the muscles on the back of the body. So the front of the body tends to be strong and tight because everything that we do in life pulls us forward. So when we sit, we're tightening up our hip flexors. When we're driving, when we're eating, when we're sleeping, we tend to be in this position so our pecs get nice and tight. But we need to focus on the back muscles, so your rhomboids, your traps, your lats, and then we need to really focus on the glutes as well. And one thing that I typically see athletes don't do is they'll turn on their glutes when they're working in the gym, so when they're squatting or deadlifting, but the body doesn't know how to transfer that glute activation across to when they're running on the footy field or when they're jumping for a mark. So we need to make sure that as a strength coach, if you are a strength coach working with footy players, that you're teaching them, making that neural pathway and teaching them how to use their glutes when they're running and when they're doing those other movements as well. Otherwise, all the work that you're doing in the gym isn't going to transfer across to the footy field, and then it's kind of a waste of time. So looking back at that 80-20 rule, spend that 20% of the time teaching them how to integrate their glutes into those movements, and you're going to get a massive, massive return.
Yeah, good points.
Cool. So big rant on that one, but we'll move on. So our last topic for today is mindset. So obviously something that we talk a lot about and we do a lot of at the Footy College. So in terms of game review or reflection of the game, do you want to kick this one off?
Yeah, so I suppose, a little bit on-field / off-field, but reflection is a massive tool, and Tiff will obviously speak on in more detail around mindset. And I did again mention growth mindset versus fixed mindset for developing athletes. But I guess if I relate it to a coach, you're always going to reflect on your actions and what you've done, and the sooner you can reflect on anything, the more immediate that feedback is to you as a player or a coach. So if I relate it to how I am as a coach, after any session that we run or do, or activity that we run, or drill that we run, or game that we play, we're going to reflect on how it goes. And often we might think it in our heads, but actually then putting it down on a paper or talking to someone about it is a great way to, I guess, cement how we felt we went, where we think we need to improve on as well, I guess use the notion of us as players, how we went. So any one-on-one battles we might have with an opponent, any one opponent we spent more time on, and how they went, what they did, trying to replay that through in your own mind. So I talked about video analysis for on-field, but you don't have access to that. We've all got pretty vivid memories, and I know as athletes, working with young athletes, they can remember a game like they've replayed it that many times in their head that they could replay it. They recount occasions of marking contest or a kick or whatever it might be before I've even clicked play on the video. So we have a very vivid memory, so you can replay that game in your head, and rather than just being negative about all the things you did wrong, just reflect on the whole game. Everything you did, every skill that you executed, every mistake that you made, and that goes again to making mistakes and learning from it. But again, one massive thing I've learned since finishing playing is that reflection is a massive tool. I thought it was just for teaching and coaching, but as a player, if you can reflect on your own actions, it's actually going to make you a better player.
And I think it is important to reflect, but also instead of beating yourself up about it, looking at how you can then use that to change or adapt your training for the week to become a better player. So a lot of the coaches that I've been working with this year, obviously with the massive uptake of women's footy, there's a lot more coaches dealing with women. They tend to be men,
Yep.
And they're just not sure. Men and women filter and process information in very, very different ways. And so men tend to find, a male coach is like, you played an amazing game. One of the coaches that I worked with was giving me this example. Went up to a player after the game, you played amazing. And she was like, oh, that first minute of the game, I was terrible. And so at the end of the game, she's still focused on that, that first minute of the game. So just letting things go and understanding that things happen as a learning opportunity for you, but not beating yourself up over them. So if you're going to be the type of athlete who reflects by beating themselves up, then that's actually not helping you become better. And that's keeping you very much in a fixed mindset, and that this is as good as I'm ever going to be, and I'm never going to be able to be more. Whereas if we can look at that and say, okay, I messed up that mark, or I didn't go into that contest very well, how can I adapt my training this week, and how can I change my focuses or do some purposeful extras to improve that skill? And how can I become better at that skill, and how many repetitions is it going to take? How much time do I need to do with that? And then looking at your game prep as well. So what's your mindset going into a game? What are you thinking about before a game? What are you thinking about during the game? I won't mention any names, but when I was working with a very elite team, I went out on the field to check on a player in the middle of a game, and he started asking me about my kitchen rules. So it's fair to say he's not playing elite football anymore, but he wasn't focused. So where is your focus, and what kinds of things are you doing? So our most successful athletes here at the college have asked me for recorded meditations or visualizations that they can do and that they can listen to before the game. We talk about getting into state, which is putting your body physiologically into a state of excellence. So recalling those feelings of being confident, of being excited, of being determined, and having that kind of feeling in your body as you go into a game. And then, what's your self-talk? So how do you talk to yourself when you do make a mistake on the field, or when you make a mistake in a practice? How do you talk to yourself? Because that, they now know that every thought that you have bathes every single cell in your body. So if you have negative self-talk, then your body is going to react in a negative way. Do you have any examples or anything to add?
No, I think you hit the nail on the head. You talk about, I think, going back to the notion of, I harp on strength-based coaching, but again, it's looking at positives over negatives, or positives and negatives, but looking at strengths versus always looking at weaknesses. I think it sort of, correct me if I'm wrong, but I know I was a little bit like that when I was playing, and particularly as a young player, always looking at what I couldn't do and not what I could do, or what I did wrong, not what I did right. And that imbalance invariably probably had me in a fixed mindset for most of my footy career. And it wasn't until later in my career and then afterwards that I started to find, and probably when coaching came along and teaching, that the growth mindset and trying to tap into that probably came to the fore. And again, you look back now and wish you had it when you were playing. So I couldn't agree with it more.
Awesome. And then the last thing I wanted to touch on today is just visualization. So studies have shown that we can still build those neural pathways in our brain through visualization. So if you are visualizing yourself playing a game or doing a skill, just make sure that you're visualizing you doing it perfectly. And you use all your senses. So what do you see? If you watch yourself doing that perfect kick, what do you see? And if you're in your body as you're doing that perfect kick, so you're watching your hands, you're watching your foot, you're watching your follow through, you're watching the ball go through the posts. What is it that you see? How does your body feel internally? How does your body feel? What do you feel externally to your body? So you're going to feel air, you might feel rain, you might feel a bit of breeze, you might feel your teammate's hand on your back after you kick that goal. You might feel an opponent pushing on you as you're about to make that kick or that handball. So what are the things that you feel? What are the things that you hear? What are the things that you smell? What are the things that you maybe taste? And so incorporate all those senses, because it makes it more lifelike for your brain when you are doing visualization, and then you do grow those neural pathways. Not as quickly as if you were actually physically doing the skill, so you do need to still be physically doing the skill, but that visualization and that mental practice will also definitely help cement those neural pathways in the long run. So that's it for me. Do you have anything else to add?
No, look, I think probably just to bring it all back, you talked about your 80-20 rule for on-field and off-field, but then also a lot of information there, and I dare say particularly some of the younger athletes that are probably watching, and even some of the first-time coaches out there are probably going, you've just thrown a lot of information at us. I'm not doing 80% of that stuff. Where do I even start? That's too much. It's too overwhelming. And as Tiff mentioned at the start, it's not about just trying to do everything and not getting it right or not fully utilising it, but just picking a couple of things out that go, you know what, I reckon that might work for me. I might try that, couple on field, couple off field, and just try them. As a coach and a player, we talk about making mistakes on field. You can make mistakes trying some of these. Try upping your hydration, and then try doing a basic gym program, even if it's just body weight. Try doing some extras. Go and seek some guidance. Maybe try and look at some video analysis. Try it. If it doesn't work, speak to someone. Hit us up. We can help you with work through that. But just pick one or two. Don't go no too much. I'm not doing any of it. I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing.
Yeah. So it's definitely not about you doing all of this in the next week and changing it. So just like you climb a flight of stairs by taking one step at a time, we've given you a whole bunch of information. You can decide what's going to be the smallest change for you that's going to have the most massive impact. So for example, this is a health and fitness example, but I was working with a client who's quite overweight, and her diet was terrible, but I actually knew that wasn't the place to start. So even though your nutrition will have more of an impact on the size and shape of your body than a gym program, we just decided to increase her hydration to 2 liters. And for 2 weeks, we just focused on her drinking 2 liters of water a day. Now, that drinking 2 liters of water a day led to her not drinking 600 mils of Coke a day. So that was an automatic, something that just fell away, and we didn't even have to then look at that. So we also like to put a positive spin. So what can you add as opposed to what can you take away? Because, if I tell you that you can't have any sugar, if you can't have any sugar, or you have to take away all these things, then some people will be like, nah, it's too hard, I can't do it. I'm not saying that these things are easy, but what can you add to your lifestyle that will allow other things that maybe aren't as healthy or aren't helping you get to the success that you want to just fall away naturally? But yeah, definitely just pick 1 or 2 things to focus on. Focus on that for the next month or 2. If you have any questions about how you can incorporate things into your life, shoot us a message on our Facebook page, on our Instagram page, email us info@arfcollege.com.au. We do have a school holiday program coming up in July. If you are one of those younger athletes who's watching and wants to, do some work with us and see the changes that we can help you make. 2 days, July 2nd and 3rd, I think it is, or 3rd and 4th. We are also going to be up in Horsham and Ararat next week, and Ballarat in June. So if you're in those areas and you want to join us, Luke will be running an hour footy session, and then we'll be having a quick chat about what we do and about mindset and everything like that. And if you're a coach, we do have our coaching PD courses coming out as well. So lots on the go. We have lots of projects coming up, but it's all very exciting.
Yeah, can't wait. Looking forward to a bit of a drive to the country and meet the folk up there. And as a Mildura boy, born and bred, good to get back to the country. And I know they're the footy up that way. We live and breathe it as up in the country, so I'm sure we'll get a pretty good response, and there'll be plenty of people wanting to tap into, I suppose, what we're doing and potentially what we can offer. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, looking forward to it. All right, if you have any ideas of future Think Tank Thursdays that you want to see, topics or questions that you want to ask, feel free to send them through. We're going to do this once a fortnight, I believe. So shoot them through and we will do our best to answer them in the next round. Thanks, guys.
See you later.